Good evening and a warm welcome to all of you. As we get older, we realize that love isn't as easy as the movies make out to be. Everything always seems to work out in the end in the fantasy land. But when it comes to real life, sometimes relationships just aren't so easy. Why is that? Why is it difficult for so many people to keep a relationship together? Why do relationships fail? While the list of reasons can be endless, there are some more common reasons why relationships fail. Joining us today is Sister Maureen. Sister Maureen has established and sustained Brahmakumari's meditation centers in Australia and Asia for over 40 years, as well as various charities in Hong Kong and Cambodia. She is in the process of setting up a center in Taiwan, but for now, riding out COVID in Australia. So let us all welcome Sister Maureen, or even known as Sister Mornie. Good evening, Sister.
Very nice to be with you, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us today. So over to you now.
Okay, so thank you. Yeah, I mean, relationships can be described as being mildly uncomfortable or even openly hostile. So, how do we sustain and enrich our relationships? I would say, first and foremost, is the whole aspect of respect. And to respect each other, we need to understand each other. To understand each other, we need to know each one's needs. Because needs are an expression of who we are. And so communication, of course, is very necessary. And then we start this dance of harmonizing our different personalities and our different needs. Because if we understand each other's needs, hopefully we can come to some agreements where we can compromise a little with each other so that each one's needs are met. Often when we hear this word need, it kind of makes us feel, oh, I don't want to be a needy person and I don't like needy people. But I've been rethinking this whole thing of needs since studying nonviolent communication. And I've come to know myself and my strengths from identifying my needs because they're very connected to my values. But of course, even Maslow has given that hierarchy of needs, and first and foremost is safety. I think when we are talking about safety, we're not probably talking about physical violence, but they say that if we are not able to give empathy, it can have even a greater effect on someone than physical violence. Because we all need to be seen, we all need to be heard, we all need to be acknowledged. And so when we're talking about communication and needs, it's really about learning to express. And of course, we will disagree. Of course, we will have conflicts. And, we're not perfect. But at least if we're honest and open, because the key to relationship is honesty. Would you agree with that? Just think about it. The key to relationship is honesty. Even the relationship with God, it said that God loves those with an honest heart. And if I'm honest with God, I really feel God accepts me, supports me, encourages me, just like a doctor. If I go to a doctor and I'm not honest about what's going on, they can't help me. They can't support me in my journey of wellness. So honesty is the most important aspect of communication, but often we're very scared to be honest, because sometimes being honest, we need to say things that the other person may not appreciate, may not want to hear. But in the end, that's what I would say. In the end, we get to a point where we learn to trust and value each other. So one whole aspect is communication and respect and harmonizing. So that's one big area we need to pay attention to. The second is to give space to each other. Because we are all different, we need to give space so each one can grow and be who they are. And I interviewed, or I kind of spoke to people who had long, healthy relationships, like 40, 50 years, and were still happy, and I would say even in love. And I haven't met too many actually, but the few that I asked, they said the key was giving each other space, giving each other freedom, acknowledging the differences and allowing for that, and letting each one be who they are. And so this is a key aspect also to good relationships, giving that space. And we have to ask ourselves this question: am I suppressing another person's right to be? Very big question. Am I suppressing another person's right to be themselves? Because I read a book, it was called Innocence and Power. And I actually thought that innocence was going to be the good thing because power is not very well looked at. But actually it was saying that, we have this saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's another saying that says, all weakness corrupts. Impotence means totally being powerless, corrupts completely. Impotence corrupts completely. In other words, if I'm not allowing someone to be, I am suppressing them. Well, yeah, I guess I could say that, but they are also allowing themselves to be suppressed very often, sometimes not. Sometimes they have no choice in the situations, but generally in our relationships with each other, we sometimes allow ourselves to be dominated, to be suppressed. And it doesn't work. It doesn't make the relationship good. In fact, sooner or later, that person will burst out. And this book was really giving a lot of evidence to show that it's the pseudo-innocence, it's the people that allow themselves to be suppressed or who have no choice and are suppressed, who actually become violent. Because sooner or later, people need to be who they are, people need to express. And so it's very important to learn to share power. So we say we can have power over someone, we can give power to someone, which is what I was just talking about. But what we would like to do is to have power with. So both of us can own our power, express our power, which means expressing ourselves, expressing our potential. So when we're able to empower others, and that can only happen when I feel secure, when I'm able to empower another, they fly, they, flourish. And so it's a lot to do with power. And there's another great saying by Martin Luther King that the crisis of our time is this conflict with power and love. And he says that power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is anemic and sentimental. So if there's just love without power, it's kind of very weak. So it's sentimental and anemic. And, I was involved in a project called The Future of Power. So I've studied a lot about power and spoken to people. There's another quote about power that says that power and love are like our two legs, and we need to use both legs. We can't just use one leg. And we need to become fluent with this power and love. And I think this relates to partners, but it very much also relates to children, because, we're constantly trying to know when to give love and when to give kind of law, which we could say is power, but when to be firm and when to allow. And so this whole aspect of power and love needs to be balanced. So not to have a negative viewpoint on power, but just to understand it and to master it. When I first started studying Raj Yoga meditation, what I would have said then, maybe I could say it now, but there's many best things about it for me. But what I would have said then is the thing that I mostly was able to achieve was emotional independence. And what I mean by that is often we are so affected by another person's mood, by the way people look at us, by the way people speak to us, the way they treat us. But for me, just that subtle thing of mood, if someone was in a mood, I didn't know how to communicate, how to be in that situation. And often, because we want something from the other person, we don't handle people's moods very well, because at that time, that person's not able to give us love and to give us empathy. And so we feel a little frustrated in that situation. But why I say Raj Yoga really helped me in this is because I learned to connect to the Supreme. And when that started to work, I was able to get what I wanted in a way. I was able to be loved and appreciated and acknowledged by the Supreme. So I didn't need someone else's love and acknowledgement. I was already feeling very cared for. And so when I'm able to be in that state, then I can give rather than trying to take. And even the whole aspect of forgiveness, if we're not trying to get anything, we can usually forgive. It's not that hard. But when we're wanting something, that's when forgiveness is very difficult. So to really look at that whole aspect also of being emotionally independent. So no matter what other people, what their mood is, how they treat me, that I can just be me, because that's what's important, that I reach that level of equilibrium. And that's probably the main description of a yogi, to be in equilibrium, to have that equanimity, that we're the same in happiness and sorrow, in victory and defeat, and with people of all different moods and states of being, I could probably say. But what I also learned from that communication is that when somebody's in a mood, usually they've got something that they want to say, but it's not always easy for people to express themselves. So if I can learn to listen with empathy, which means to be just present, not to judge, not to teach, not to advise, but just be present so I can really let that person empty what's inside. So it's interesting, that word's very close, empathy and empty. So when somebody's able to empty those feelings, it makes them feel very light. And you know when they've emptied everything because they become very at ease. And so they often aren't able to communicate because they're scared of my reaction. So it's not a one-way situation, it's very much a two-way situation. So another thing is to know our boundaries. So, when people are asked what is love, very often people say love is unconditional. It's probably one of the most common responses. But I'd like you to think about that. What does unconditional mean? And I would say that it's not unconditional in the sense that we just allow anything to happen. In fact, in a good relationship, there are consequences. We let people know that there will be consequences of their behavior. And a very good story that illustrates this was of a couple that went to a psychologist, and they said to the psychologist, "Oh, we've got a problem with our teenage son." And they said he stopped going to school almost a year ago. He's not looking for a job. He's not going to study anymore. He doesn't do anything around the house. And the psychologist asked, "So if he's not earning any money, where is he living?" And they said, "Oh, he lives with us." "What's he eating?" "Oh, we feed him." "And does he walk everywhere? How does he get around?" "We lend him the car." So the psychologist said, "Doesn't sound like he's got a problem at all. In other words, he's got everything." Why would these parents allow this situation to continue? What I'd like to ask you to reflect on, is it because of love? Is it love? I would say not. I would say it's fear, because we're afraid of the reaction of the other person. We're afraid to be rejected. We're afraid that we'll make the person angry. But boundaries are very, very hard. We need to ask the question, if I don't put a boundary here, what will be the long-term result? Like in that situation, will the relationship improve? Will the young man improve? Probably not. And I'm not advocating that you just straight away put him out on the street, but we can practice boundaries slowly and gently by, perhaps the first thing would be to say, until you get a job, until you're earning some money, you can't use the car anymore. We'll give you money for a bus. Something like that. So at least he's not having all the comfort and no reason to step up. And then I would do the next step and say, unless you help me to wash and chop the vegetables, I wouldn't even say wash up, because he could say, I'll do it tomorrow. So I would say, unless you help me to wash and chop the vegetables, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat here because I need help. So small steps, and even they're not easy, but we have to ask, if we don't do it, what would be the long-term results? And the responsibility of a parent as a trustee for our children is to make them independent. So we need to make the children independent of us. This is totally unacceptable that this kind of situation continues. And so, putting boundaries are actually to improve the relationship. In the beginning, there will be a reaction. In the long term, I would say there would be appreciation. But of course, we have to go through those things. And then the other aspect is the whole essence of the teaching of the Brahma Kumaris is soul consciousness. Soul consciousness means to see the other as a soul. And a soul is by nature, the innate qualities of a soul are loving, peaceful, giving. So when we see the other as a soul, we know that that is what is inside. If it's not coming out, there's a reason for that. So communication might help me. And if I can't speak, just good wishes and that pure vision. Because it's a saying that says, angels don't worry about anyone, they believe in them. So that vision of believing in the other person's growth and strength is what will help them to grow and strengthen themselves. Whereas if we worry about how they will manage and all of these things, then we're disempowering and not believing in the other person. So this whole aspect of soul consciousness is the belief and the vision in the innate goodness of each being on this planet. And so it's a very big practice to keep that vision on others. So I think I've shared a lot. So I would like to ask you if you have any questions on what's been said already.
Thank you, sister. That was very nice. You brought out a lot of points that we need to sit down and think about them and work on them, basically. But I really like the point. The first thing that you started with is respect. A relationship is bound to be successful if two people respect each other, if they don't give up on each other. Having differences with people is unavoidable. And if we want our relationships to endure, what matters is how you understand and relate to differences.
And if I can just add in there also, it's said, and I think there's some truth to it, it's a generalization, but women need love and men need respect. So that's an interesting tip also. And I don't know if you think that's true. Are there any men here? I'd like to hear what they say about that. But even I've been listening about, I was listening to something in the car the other day, was talking about money. And what keeps a woman in a job is relationships and connections with people at work. But what generally keeps a man in a job is money. So we have to acknowledge that there are often differences. Of course, these are generalizations, but it's just good to understand each other and not expect the other one to be like me, to be the same as me, because that doesn't always work. So any comments on that?
Yes, there is a comment which says that, yes, that's true. Men do want or like to be respected. There is also a comment that is modern day relationships are like made in China. Their packaging is wonderful to lure the prospective consumers, but they offer no guarantee.
Yeah, but that's another thing about, what true love is all about. Because, Scott Peck says in his book, The Road Less Traveled, falling in love is a trick that the genes play on the otherwise perceptive mind to hoodwink you into marriage. So love marriage is not always based on love. It can be based on, hormones. It can be based on attraction. And this is not a good foundation for something you want to last for 50 years or so. It's really not the way to go about love.
Okay. Sister, we have a few questions already. And I probably feel that there will be more questions as and when this session is going on, but could we have a few minutes of meditation as to how do we to mend relationships? How is it that maybe we can practice meditation, or how meditation can help mending relationships?
Yes, that's wonderful. Okay, so we'll just turn our thoughts within by being aware of our breath, just to take our thoughts away from anything external. And become aware of yourself as a tiny point of life energy that uses this body, that is separate from the body. I am a being of peace and love. Each and every one of us is by nature a being of peace and love. And I need to look into the soul of the other and see that spark of peace, of love. We create many layers that we believe we need in order to survive. But all of those masks, those protections, are not me. As I strengthen my inner self and stand in my own power, recognize myself as a being of love, I will have the courage to let go of those masks, all those protections that I've surrounded myself with, hidden myself behind. I will have the courage to be myself. And when I realize who I am, when I recognize myself, I will truly love myself as I am and what I am, accepting what needs to change, and being patient and understanding with myself. And when I can do this, I will be patient and understanding with others as well. So now just spend a moment in silence, being aware of your own true essence, and emerge someone in front of you with whom there is maybe some discomfort or conflict, and really see that one in their essence. Try to really see that being. Behind their protective mask. With love and understanding. Om Shanti. I am a being of peace.
Thank you, sister, once again. We have a few questions, like I said earlier, but the first question is very interesting. Someone is asking that, how do I build a good relationship with myself? I feel I'm constantly badgering myself and keep saying to myself that I am no good.
Very good question, because we can't have good relationships with others if we don't have good relationships with ourselves, whether it's with ourselves as a friend, as a teacher. So yeah, I think for me, the shortcut was to realize that I don't need love. Actually, of course, that's a bit of a journey to reach that point, but I am love. When I start making that effort to understand myself as a being of love, that is really the shortcut to knowing myself. So, of course, that's a big journey in the sense that we have to know what is love, but love is recognition. So I need to know myself, and I'll only know myself if I can experience myself. And that's why we meditate. We meditate ourselves. We meditate so that we can know ourselves as we are and what we are through experience, not intellectually, but I need to experience peace, experience love. And of course, it's helped greatly by that connection with the Supreme, because I am, well, we say the only difference between ourselves and God is that we take bodies, and there's one soul that never takes a body and so stays original. So when I connect with that being, I can connect with what is original, and I can experience myself in my essence of peace and love. But there's many things that can help that. In fact, I've just written a book, and I've learned so much from Raj Yoga, but also from so many great teachers. So all these things of boundaries, non-violence, violent communication, a personal bill of rights, what I need to allow for myself, all these things really help us to empower ourselves and accept ourselves. And it's available through our publishing house, Eternity Inc., or through Amazon, but also quite inexpensive on Kindle. So that's an easy way to get books nowadays. But there's a lot in there about all of these things, But otherwise, it's a very big subject to love myself. But to know myself, when I know myself, I will love myself, guaranteed, because we are beautiful beings, but we have to recognize that and connect with that and know that.
I think we need one more session with you, sister, on how to love yourself. That would be nice.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
Yeah. Okay, our next question is, can we ever believe someone when they say their intentions are different from their actions?
A lot of people have good intentions and their actions are very inappropriate. And that's what we also learn from the nonviolent communication. We learn how to improve the way we use strategies to meet the needs. And so I'm just finding a way that I can, connect. It's a bit of a shadow here, sorry. I had to change places because the internet didn't work. Anyway, so just to get back to this. So in nonviolent communication, we learn to make requests rather than demands, and we learn to have our needs met through the most harmless strategy. So sometimes people have a good intention, but the way they go about connecting with another person is really quite unusual, I would say, quite unusual. And I've seen this. I've seen that people have good intentions and yet their delivery is so inappropriate and really upsets the other people. So, yeah, this is all about strategies. So, yes, I would say people can have a good intention and yet their actions are not appropriate.
Connected to the first question, the previous question, we have another question which is, how can we judge ourselves by our intentions, yet judge others by their actions?
How can we judge ourselves
by our intentions,
yeah,
yet judge others by their actions?
Yeah, I think this is where the nonviolent communication really comes in, because we can learn to communicate with the other person and say, when you did this, and be very objective and not evaluate what they did, just clearly outline what happened. When you did this, I felt this, and I'm needing to know, what your intention was behind this, or something like that. So we actually can ask the person what their intention was. And you'll often hear something quite different to what you see. I mean, here I'm giving the person the benefit of the doubt because I know it happens. But yeah, sometimes people don't have a good intention and yet they say, oh, yeah, but my intention's good. It can happen, but it can be either way. So communication without being charged, without blaming, without, judging and analyzing. Like we often say, I feel that. I'm already analyzing. A feeling's in the body. So what do I feel? I feel sad, or in my head, I feel confused, or I feel angry, because I'm needing, whatever you are needing. And you can actually list those needs. So communication really helps to know someone's intention, to clarify it.
Yeah, I can understand what you just said, because ever so often I've had this with myself, that when I'm communicating with somebody, I expect the return or the answer that I get from that person is like a cushion, but then it's not what I expected. And that's where the problem starts.
Yeah. And so often we even say things that we don't mean. Like one man said to his wife, I don't want you to go to that Raj Yoga center anymore, and don't take the children. And when he calmed down, she said, did you really mean that? And he said, no. But it's clearly what he said at that moment. But he said, no, I don't I don't mean that. It's good for you and the children. But he didn't say that. He was reacting to something that happened.
Okay. Our next question is, do failed relationships make you a failure in life?
Wow. I would say you're not a failure in life. However, I would always have the aim to at least have some peace in that relationship, in the sense, maybe you can't live together, maybe you can't even meet together or talk together, but I would probably not give up on being at least calm with the other person, like being able to not feel hurt or angry when I think of the person. And hopefully they also could not feel that when they think about me. So I think it's necessary to try and keep all these relationships clear, because we call them karmic accounts, right? So I don't want any karmic accounts with anyone, but it doesn't mean I can live with them. It doesn't mean I can work with them, but at least let us just be respectfully, distant, at least that much. Mm.
Like you said, give each other space, maybe.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
has been elaborated, the same question has been elaborated again, is like, after many failed relationships, how do you know if it is you or if it's just a bad relationship? Where is the fine line?
Yeah, sometimes it's our choices, and we make choices for different reasons. So that's why it's really good to know our needs. And if we're going to be in a relationship with someone, we should see whether those needs will be met in that relationship. For example, so many people who have grown up in a household where there's been addiction, they go into relationships with people with addictions because it's familiar, and sometimes they don't feel worthy of something more. All kinds of reasons why we choose the wrong person. And yeah, I think it's also a lot to do with love, because I was teaching in a drug rehab center. I was teaching women about love. And when I finished, I created a board, what is love and what is not love. And at the end, and wrote up what is love and what isn't love. And at the end, they said to me, we are so confused. Whatever we think is love, you're saying is not love. And whatever we think is love, you're saying is not love. Can you come back again? Because we can't understand it. So, for example, people think that love is jealousy, love is possessive, love is attached. There's so many misconceptions about the whole thing around love that we don't know how to choose in the right way. So it's not a sign of failure, but definitely it's a sign that it's better to learn something before you go into another relationship. There was a very good book years ago, it's probably still around, Women Who Love Too Much. And yeah, it just went into why women give so unconditionally, and how it's so inappropriate, and it's often a lack of self-respect. So we do need to study and learn about these things before we enter another relationship. See, even in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous and a lot of these 12-step programs, they recommend that if you're not in a relationship, don't go into a relationship until you understand yourself and release yourself from addictive behavior, so that you really can see clearly. So I would say, take a break. Don't go into a relationship until you learn something new. Otherwise, they say the sign of a crazy person is that they do the same thing and expect a different result. And often that's what's happening in relationships.
Sister, there is a comment asking you to give your opinion on what they say that women think with their heart and the men think with their minds or with their brains.
Yeah, I do think there is some research done on this, that really women, often, these are generalizations, but often more in touch with their feelings, because it's the cultures that we're brought up in. Men have been trained not to show their feelings. It's a sign of weakness. So women have not received that message. It's been quite accepted for women to be more emotional and to feel. So, there's there's a I don't know if you have it over there in Indonesia, but there's a something called a snag. It's called a spiritual new age gentleman. So women are finding them quite attractive because they're more in touch with their feelings, So now men are allowing themselves to get in touch with their feelings and their emotions much more than probably over the last century. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And that's where women and men can help each other, because we can, learn from each other.
Thank you, sister. It was a wonderful session. We have taken in so much. There's one more. Comment here. Women's mountain demands kills men at the end. So I suppose this is a man saying. I shall repeat it again. Women's mountain demands kills men at the end. So women are basically very demanding.
Yeah. Are they? I think so. But I think it's just this lack of understanding of each other, because they want different things to what men want, and men want different things to what women want. And so that's why, we really can learn and grow together when we can communicate. So probably it all starts there, that when we really learn to communicate and understand each other's needs, then we can move forward in our relationship. But of course, we first need to know our own needs and give ourselves empathy. And sometimes, if we're not getting empathy and understanding from another person, we need to give it to ourselves, or to open ourselves to the Supreme. But we do need that empathy. So we have to find it either from ourselves, from our girlfriends, from God, and communicating with the men in our lives so that they can at least think about it.
Yeah, I think again, back to where you had started this session was respect. The link that are linked up together is respect, understand, communicate, and harmonize.
Yeah.
I think that summarizes this whole session of today. So thank you very much for today's session. And we have a gathering of souls from all across the world, many of them who you do know and are familiar with. So I would like to request everyone if they could switch on their camera so that we can all thank Sister Maureen together. It would be nice.
Yes, nice to have a gallery view. Let me just put it up here. And I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see all those little frames. Very nice. Yes, I am seeing a lot of familiar faces. Very, very lovely. Very lovely. So nice. Can you put your videos on? Because some are just names, but I still know you, Bina, and yeah, Mona. Very, very nice. Varka, Om Shanti. So, recognizing many of you. Kavita Ben, Om Shanti. Very, very nice. Very, very nice.
So we have London, Guam, India, Indonesia, variety of souls joining today.
Yeah. Very lovely. Good. Thank you so much for inviting me, and lovely to be with you all over the world. And yeah, let's all really take a step back and learn to respect, and really try to understand each other so we can move forward and stay connected. So really, really very lovely, lovely. Thank you. Om
Thank you so
Shanti.
much. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Our next session will be on coming Saturday at 4 p.m. So do drop me a message so that I can update you with the details. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Om Shanti.